I didn't. We didn't have it when we were first married. We didn't have. You'd still see the magazine and stuff, and every once in a while I'd sneak a peek, But I always thought, I don't want to be in here looking at a penthouse or a Playboy and have somebody walking in who knows me, So it would just be brief. I think the real tough time, what really seemed to really grab me the most, is when we got a computer in our home. And for the first time ever, you could access it anytime, anytime. And at first, as you're learning new computer skills, you don't know what's going to happen. Things happen. You go, where did this come from? How did I get this? And then you're intrigued. You may be exposed a little bit. You go, well, what else? And then you start to search, and then it just builds. It just builds. And then you're trying to do it when your wife's gone or when everybody's asleep or early in the morning or whatever. When you get that. And it's universal. Men who have this problem all try to do it secretly. They all try to do it when they feel that they're not going to get caught by their wife or their kids or anything like that. And they make excuses and they hide their tracks. It's just like an alcoholic, I've decided. Somebody who keeps a bottle of alcohol in a top drawer someplace where it's hard to get to and nobody's ever going to go up there and look for it. It's that kind of thing. And you're the same way. You think, that's when it started to occur to me, I'm having the symptoms of somebody who's addicted. And I thought, oh, come on now. You're not addicted to this. You can quit anytime you want, And then I thought, that's what addicts say. Addicts think this. I thought, I just said what an addict says. I can quit anytime I want. I can stop anytime I want. Then why don't I? Because I'm addicted. That's when the epiphany hit me strong. It just slapped me hard. And I thought, and then you start to succumb. You start to say, well, if I'm an addict, am I hurting anybody? No. Do I still love my wife and kids? Yes. Am I still providing? Yes. It's not like gambling because I'm not spending my paycheck. And it's not like I'm driving around drunk. And it's not like I'm smoking cigarettes that's causing me to die. It didn't have the same dangerous effects, I felt. It's just me and my brain. That's it. So I just thought, well, I can live with this. I mean, I have all these other good things that I'm doing. I'm a good husband, a good father. I have a good church calling. I'm doing all these right things here, and I have one small flaw. Okay, I have a flaw. I said it. I have a flaw. I'm not perfect. And I started to rationalize it. I started to think to myself, everybody's has some flaws. Mine's this. Some other men may have bad tempers. Other men may be jealous nuts, or they may spend themselves into the poorhouse or whatever. Mine's not doing any of those things. It's just that I just have this sexual need. And I was very good at rationalizing. I was a school teacher. I was accessing pornographic sites at school. Not at my home, at school. And so it started off just simple enough. Just, you're going to sports sites, ESPN or Sports Illustrated, looking, reading. I'm a sports fan. I like sports. And then there's always the swimsuit part or the girls of summer part or something like that. So you click on those and then you think, wow, she's beautiful. You got, so you type in her name in the, to do a Google search. What other things is she involved in? And then it leads you to pornographic sites all over the place. And for the most part, the filters at the school would block 90%, but not 100. And I got really good at going where the 10% wasn't covered. And then my employer, he pulled me in. The director of personnel pulled me in. He says, "Do you know why you're here?" And as soon as I was called in, I knew. And it was just as if somebody had reached in and grabbed my whole spirit and just started twisting it. Now you got to go home and tell your family that you have been fired from your job and that you have to tell your wife why and tell your kids why. And see, here I am in this community where 8 or 9 of the kids in my ward were in my class. And so the kids are going, why did you just quit? Out of the blue? What's going on? Parents started to call me. My kid loves your class. Why is this happening? And so I refer back to it as that time for about 3 months there. 3 months, I was being slapped with shame everywhere I went. If I went to church, I got slapped with shame. At home, I was being slapped. And every time somebody come on the phone, I was being slapped with shame. And if I start looking for a new job, my employers, why did you're getting slapped with shame? And you find another job, and then the people are saying, what are you doing here? Where did you come from? What's your background? And you're getting slapped with shame. And I look back on it now, it's almost like if I would have just been upfront with everybody, sure, there'd have been that really intense shame, but like all emotions, it fades. Well, for me, my view was the whole world is talking about me and why this happened, and I just don't even want to go outside. I don't even want to leave the house. It was so shameful. Because everywhere I went somewhere, if I went someplace, I'd see one of my students, they'd say, "Why are you not teaching our class? Are you mad at us? Did you just quit? What do you say?" And the parents would see me in the stores or the theaters or no matter where I went, walking down the street. Just incredibly shameful.
You have to make something up.
Yeah. And my relatives and friends who didn't even live in state started hearing about this. It just incredibly shameful. Incredibly. I mean, it's almost, now I understand when I watch on television where these politicians and these people who are saying how they have to like that female track athlete who used steroids to win all these gold medals had to come out in public and say, I cheated. I won all these great events because I used these performance enhancing drugs. And just cried, and their whole world just collapsed. Or these public figures who've done something, had an affair or something like that, and their whole world just collapses. Boy, I had a whole new perspective about that now. That happened to me. My world collapsed. That was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. Easily the hardest thing. I had to sit there and explain to them why this happened, what I'd been doing, and I came totally clean with them. I said, you will probably have to suffer for this for my sake, which means eventually, over time, they're going to come to you and say, your dad got fired because he was looking at pornography or something like that. And they're going to put that in your face. Those type of age, when kids are teenagers, they have no problem slapping somebody with it. And I said, you're going to have to decide. And, in my opinion, you can just say, hey, my dad wanted to do something else for a while. And just leave it at that. You don't have to explain. You don't have to justify. You can just walk away and say, hey, you can think whatever you want. My dad wanted to do something different. And so knowing that they would go through that was painful. Knowing that my wife, her feelings, was paramount to me. It definitely, breaks your marriage down. It definitely strains it to the point of maybe disrepair, And like, remember, my rationalization again was, it's just only me. It was just me involved. Nobody else was around me. Nobody else was in the room with me. I'm not doing it at home. And so I rationalized it, that it's not an issue anybody else. But see, all of a sudden now, my church callings are affected. My wife is affected. My career is affected. My children are affected. Everything that I had convinced myself would not be an issue was. That's why I know now that pornography, I don't care what rationalization you use, is false. Anybody out there who rationalizes it away, you are deceiving yourself. And until you realize you're deceiving yourself, then you're just going to have to get hit so hard with shame and guilt or remorse or consequences of your choice. If that's what it takes, then I guess you have to go through it too. If you cannot learn from other people's mistakes, then you definitely will have to suffer the consequences. And it'll happen eventually. It happens eventually to everyone. And my therapist said to me, one thing, all of you, and I was with these other men who had the similar issue, she goes, the one thing you all have in common is you had to lose something to be here. You either had to lose your relationship with your wife, your career, or you had to lose your freedom to go to jail, or whatever it was. You all lost something. And she said, is that true of all of you? And I go, yep, we all agreed. We all nearly lost our spouses, our jobs, whatever it was. And there we were sitting in the room trying to do the things we need to do to fix it. And I said, I recognized these systems long ago, but I'd rationalize away. She goes, they all do. They all rationalize away until something happens so much to break out of that rationalization. If you can say, okay, I don't want to go what he went through, what do I need to do? Well, then that is probably the healthiest thing any guy can say. Anybody can say, I don't want to go down that road. So, what do I got to do? Well, what you got to do is, first of all, if you're married, say, I have this issue. I have this problem. And I have learned that women are resilient and are tough if they can trust their spouse. If they can share with their spouse their problems and their issues, their spouse say, okay, let's go do things to fix this. Then be willing to fix it. Fix the problem. Go to talk to people who understand what you're going through and who can offer support and help. Then, if you're a religious person, go to a person who you can share these feelings with, because I guarantee you it's nothing new to that clergy. Like for my circumstance, my bishop, this was not a new issue to him. I know without a doubt other men struggle. So he said, he asked me, what are you going to do about it? And I told him, he goes, there you go. You are taking the right path. You are going to learn how to stop it, how to not be exposed yourself to it, and I explained to him what I was doing. He goes, that is a good plan. Well, come and talk to me in a few more weeks and we'll see how it's going. And so if they go to people, if they are upfront with their families and their wife, if they take themselves out of position of exposure, learn what triggers them, they can make it. They can get through this. If they want to. Sometimes they may not. Sometimes they're willing to cash in their family and their relationship with their wives for pornography. Just like people who do drugs. They'll destroy everybody around them to feed that need. And if they don't want the help, then there's not much you can do.